It was warm in the city of Corleone, Sicily in 1888 when Ciro Terranova, a boy who would later become known as the Artichoke King, was born. At the age of 5, with his father, mother, 4 sisters, and 2 brothers, Vincenzo and Niccolo, would gather up their few possessions and head for America in hopes of a better life. The first few years in America were difficult for the Terranovas. Work was extremely hard to come by. For the next 2 years, Mr. Terranova the Sr., with his family in tow, tried his hand at numerous business ventures, from planting sugarcane in Louisiana to picking cotton in the small town of Bryan, Texas. In 1896, tragedy struck as the whole family was infected with malaria. As a result, the Terranovas moved back to New York. Years later, the 3 young Terranovas and a half-brother, Giuseppe Morello, would establish the first Sicilian crime family in New York. From these humble beginnings, one of the most powerful mafia families of the 20th century would emerge. Names associated with this borgata would include Charles Lucky Luciano, Frank Costello, and Vito Genovese. In 1918, after the imprisonment of the vicious blackhander and Morello supporter Ignazio Saetti, also known as Lupo the Wolf, Ciro Terranova's star was on the rise as he took control of the territory of East Harlem, a Morello stronghold. He partnered with such crime bosses as beer baron Dutch Schultz and mafia chieftain Joe the Boss Masseria. Knowing Italians and their taste for artichokes, Terranova bought up all that were coming into New York, and the papers dubbed him the Artichoke King. According to informant Joe Valachi, it was a lucrative racket, and Terranova was able to name his price. He would remain a powerful figure in the mafia during the 1920s, but his influence began to fade during the Castellamarese War between Salvatore Maranzano and Giuseppe Joe the Boss Masseria. Joe the Boss, who wanted complete control over the rackets in New York, was obsessed with getting his competition out of the way. And that competition was Salvatore Maranzano. His obsession became a war, and as victim after victim fell on both sides, business on the street began to suffer. Young Turks like Luciano, Costello, and Genovese grew tired and impatient. They wanted the war, a war which did not really matter to them, to come to an end. They met secretly with Maranzano and agreed to take out their own godfather, Joe the Boss Masseria. On April 15, 1931, Masseria, along with Luciano, Genovese, and others, took a trip to Coney Island under the auspices of having lunch. The car used to transport Masseria was owned and operated by Ciro Terranova. The hit team was a conspiracy of not only Sicilians and Italians, but included men from other gangs and ethnic descent. This hit team was the first act of the emerging national crime syndicate and represented a truly universal death squad. After they took out Masseria, and as the men prepared to depart, Luciano and Genovese noticed Terranova's hands were shaking. In fact, they shook so badly that he was unable to start the car. In disgust, he was pushed out of the way and ordered to sit in the back seat. Ever since then, according to informer Joe Valachi, Ciro Terranova was getting what was called buckwheats. You know, like he was being taken. His power was being taken from him. This incident, along with the assessment by Luciano that he showed no initiative, caused both he and Genovese to hate Terranova and consider him weak. In 1935, the newly formed commission had one of its biggest challenges up till that time. A young district attorney named Thomas E. Dewey had one of their board members, Arthur Flegenheimer, also known as Dutch Schultz, in his sights. Schultz wanted Dewey killed, the commission disagreed. Schultz promised he would hit Dewey himself and stormed out of the meeting. The commission was left with no choice but to take out Schultz before he took out Dewey and brought down heat on them all. With the execution of Dutch Schultz in 1935, Terranova looked at the lucrative empire left behind and attempted to take over the Dutchman's policy rackets. When found out, he was ordered to beat it by the commission. He died 3 years later, his power almost gone, and was considered by most to be an ineffectual mafia flunky.